Welcome to News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa. Today is July 13th, 2026. This will be episode 90, a conservative-leaning podcast, if you don't know. But I do take facts into account and make my opinions. I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican. Federalist, I believe in the Constitution, not MAGA. Though I might be aligned to some things that MAGA is part of, but being a Republican, that's what you're going to be. Not MAGA, though. Real quick, today's show is basically going to be talking about, of course, the passing of Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina. I was not his greatest fan. He always floated around not as an independent Republican, but wishy-washy on some things, where he could have taken a harder stand or a better stand with the party. But all in all, I thought he was a good man. Didn't agree with everything that he wanted. I had noticed, and I said this in prior shows, in the last couple of months, well, really it was the last 3 or 4 weeks, he didn't look good. He did not look good. 71, travels a lot. He's a senator. Was a senator. And that takes its toll. You drink, you eat. He had looked like he had gained some weight in the last year or two. And, of course, they're saying it was a dissection of the aorta, and it's, even if that happened while he was in the hospital, you got very little chance of surviving that. Just so you know, that is what John Ritter, Three's Company, died of the same thing. It's rare. But it happens. It happens. The big question now is who gets that seat? Of course, under the Constitution, the governor of South Carolina, Henry McMaster, will get to choose who that individual is. And then there'll be a primary for the seat permanently that will take place in November, and then January, the new senator takes over. There's people, of course, vying for the seat. There's only a few, I can only think of two that would possibly get that seat. And I know Nancy Mace said she wants to do it. How Trump felt about crazy Nancy Mace. Pam Everett. And now these were all people that ran, with the exception of one, that ran for the governorship, because Henry McMaster is not running. And now that's going to be up to Alan Wilson for the Republicans, who got the nomination, won the primary. The Nancy Mace, Pam Everett, who Trump liked, but Pam Everett refused to say who she would pick as the lieutenant governor. And she had promised this a few times to say, I'll tell you on this date. And She didn't, and that turned off a lot of people. Don't understand what that was about. You know, who was she picking, or was no one? I mean, was it a Harris situation where the good folks that really would have jumped on a strong party bandwagon just said that Everett wasn't going to carry it. I wasn't going to go out there and hook myself to a wagon that's going off a cliff. And she couldn't find anyone that she could really nail down that she really wanted. So I think her idea, this is Pam Everett, was to win the nomination, then get the people, you know, and there were a lot of people, a lot of talk hosts, local talk hosts that, you know, wanted to know. And that was their right to know. Who are you going to pick? Who's going to be your running mate? And she just wouldn't give it. So that's Mark Lynch, who Trump characterized as lunatic Mark, you know, Mark Lynch. So I can't see Nancy Mace, Pam Everett, or Mark Lynch getting, you know, the seat. There is a possibility that Ralph Norman, if he were to get the endorsement of President Trump, might have a shot at it. It's just too many players out there right now. Nancy Mace got less than 3% of the votes. I don't see that happening. Pam Everett, she got like 28% of the vote, and this was a very highly contested governorship election. But the one one person that could be tapped is Russell Fry. Russell Fry is our congressman in the House of Representatives. And that could happen. That could happen. Is absolutely super strong supporter of President Trump, and has stood side by side with the president. If they have someone that could take his spot, I think the people of our district, with where Russell Fry is from, would love to see him in the Senate. I don't know if that's going to happen because Trump needs a lot of friends in Congress. So the only one that I could think of would be Ralph Norman possibly getting the nod. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. There was a lot of history with Graham. He was a very powerful senator. Carried a lot of weight. He also ran. He ran for a nomination way in the beginning, and remember he started off as a never Trumper, and there was a lot of not bad blood there, but once the president got in, he got behind him. You know, because everyone held Donald Trump out there, said, you know, that no one was going to take it seriously. And he kept making inroads with the voters. They liked him. They liked Donald Trump. They still like Donald Trump. And that makes the Democrats and the progressives and the communists and the socialists insane. they just don't get it, that this is a popular president. And he doesn't do everything right. I've said that too. But he does know how to resonate with people. He can read a room. And I think he's done a relatively good job as president. I realize that he has to keep his core Republicans and moderate Democrats happy. That's politics. They made Donald Trump a politician. Liberals and your Schumers and your Pelosi's and your Greens and your Waters, Nadler, they all made Trump into a politician. He wasn't a politician before. And this second term, he's a politician. Donald Trump, he learns. He observes. And then when he speaks, you better be listening. And again, not everything that Donald Trump has done, I agree with. But I would say that if you look at his success rates, mostly with the Supreme Court, and you'll have he picked them all. He didn't pick them all. And the Supreme Court is really independent. It's proven itself to be independent. They use the language, and that language can be used for an agenda or against an agenda. At the end of the day, the Supreme Court, if it's a constitutional issue, and they accept the issue and make a ruling on it, that's it. Over. Done. Done. If they don't make an issue on it, and it has been rejected by lower courts all the way up to the next step is the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court won't hear it, that's it. The lower court wins. And that's the way it works. And, you don't have to be happy about it, but you do have to accept it. So let's get back to Lindsey Graham's seat. He's only been gone, a day or two. And they're trying to fill that as quick as possible. Knew that would happen. Any of these seats. Mitch McConnell, who now has made some type of recorded or thing from his hospital bed, says, yeah, I'm not going to be able to get back in there to start doing stuff and, get to the House to vote. Get back to the Senate. And they all had him as dead already. And if they buried him every time they said he was dead, his grave would be, in China somewhere. And that's not a joke about his wife going to China when he was in the hospital, which I still, I don't know what that was about. Having my coffee this morning. And again, folks, I apologize. All last week I didn't really do a show. Again, I have my good days, I have my bad days. Last week was bad days. But I didn't do a show Sunday because I just wasn't, and Saturday there just wasn't enough information on on what happened to the senator. He had just come back from the Ukraine, and now you have everyone, all your conspiracy theorists are out there, He was poisoned. He was killed. The CIA used the heart attack gun on him. 71, something went wrong and he died. I would say that, the only thing that, if I was just getting off the path over here, if I was Iran, I would not be saying we killed him or something like that. Unless they really did it and had proof and, said, yeah, if you look for this toxic stuff in him, you'll find it. Guess who delivered it? Us. Then, then I would believe them. But then at that point, I don't think Iran would be existing much longer. At least the people that were there. We would put troops on the ground and we would hunt them down. So I can't see if Iran did that, they might be making snide little comments about it. But I wouldn't be out there going, yeah, we did this. What are you going to do about it? Yeah, I wouldn't do that with Trump. Wouldn't do that. That would be a bad, bad move. So, all right. 15 minutes on Lindsey Graham. And of course, there'll be more with this. Let's talk about Graham Plattner. He's gone. And I said this weeks ago, he would not make it to the election. This guy was so bad. And Plattner was and is everything wrong with the Democratic Party. This is the big tent that they invited all these radicals into their big tent. And the tent is now collapsing and burning. Sanders, Pelosi, Warren, AOC. I mean, they got to look bad. And they shoved a lot of money this guy's way. And boy, oh boy, did he fail badly. And the repercussions, the Republicans are just going to run with this. I would hope that they'd be running harder and stronger on these positions against these progressives. But I think the progressives are doing all the heavy lifting for the Republicans. And the progressives that pushed out what I would call the central or left-leaning Democrats, pushed them out of primaries. Now they're stuck with these, Plattner, unless they remove them off the ticket and then, get someone else in. Not going to help. Not going to help. I think the DNC has done a horrible job of promoting itself, of everything they've been doing. Everything they've been doing the last 3 years has been horrible. And like I said, I liked Schumer. Schumer was a guy that could get things done. He could walk the aisle. He knew who to go to. Lindsey Graham, they knew who to go to. they were deal brokers. That's gone now because you have so many radicals, even on the Republican side, that you just can't count on them. You can't count on Democrats. You can't count on some of the Republicans that you were able to go to and go, we're going to click our heels here, guys, because it's what we have to do. And then once the dust settles, then we can go in there and tweak it up. And Schumer was good at that. And I liked him. I wouldn't vote for him, but I respected him. Now I do not respect him at all. Jeffries, I've never respected. Why they would put Jeffries. I mean, we know why. Come on, let's face it. Let's call what Jeffries was picked for. We know why. We're not stupid. And he wasn't up to the job. He just didn't have the support because everyone knew that, he was anointed. And there were better people for that position. But it looked good, until it didn't look good. And after November, Schumer's gone and Jeffries is gone. From their positions in where they hold, as the leaders of their parties. I mean, they'll still have their jobs, but, and, Jeffries and his core group will be screaming, look, we know why you did it. You did it because you got us out of there because we were black, or, we spoke the truth and you couldn't take the truth. It's going to be that same rhetoric bullcrap. And the Democrats are not going to gain anything. They're not going to gain anything. They're losing. They're losing. And you're going to see a Donald Trump come out in November after the election. Oh, he's going to be swinging away. But he's also going to be making sure that whoever is going to take the Republican spot for the presidency is going to be someone that is going to kind of follow in his footsteps. So, for Maine, the clear and only choice for the replacement of Plattner is, of course, Janet Mills, the governor. Why they didn't pick her, well, she wasn't radical enough for them. And the DNC was so stupid. Janet Mills, she won the governorship. She had the votes. She had the votes. She probably could beat Susan Collins back then. Now, no. Now there's no shot. And I don't even know if Janet Mills would run if asked. She might, and there'll be a question, well, you weren't going to run for governor again. You didn't want to do this. So are you really in this game? Or are you going to take it and then give it to someone else? So they just played, the DNC has just played this horribly, horribly. The progressives are running into problems even in California. There's a lot of problems going on inside the progressive movement. Mondami, I wouldn't even say he had a honeymoon, but it is ending quickly. You had the progressives in New York. You had 52 food stores since Mondami. Pack up and leave. And we said, we're not going to compete against free food stores that you're going to be doing, And we have people that are, on EBT that come and spend money in our stores. I would say that's at least 40% of the sales in food stores in New York City is all EBT money. So if they went over to a free store, that means they could hold on to their EBT money and use it for what they've been using it for. They sell it for money. I've seen it here in South Carolina. People buy a grocery cart of food, boom, boom, boom. They go outside, someone hands them some cash, and out the door they go. So these food stores are saying, we're not going to do that. We can't compete with that. It's already a pretty slim margin. Why bother? Go to the free food store. They're closing down. Now in your affluent areas, you'll still have your D'Agostino's or whatever in Manhattan, if they're still around. That was the big high-end food store when I worked in, the Upper West Side. You just can't expect a free enterprise system to try to compete with free. That's not going to happen. They're going to move out. And you're seeing that with car dealerships there and that were in Manhattan. They were always on the west side, near the piers, because that was the cheapest of the property. They're all moving out. Look at the businesses moving out. They just don't want to deal with the problem of Manhattan. You're going to see the fallout from the building that's falling down. And that's not Mondami's fault or anything like that. I'm not blaming, that would be crazy talk. But the repercussions from that are the businesses that surround that going, I have to move my people because, I don't want a building to fall on them. And I can't get my clients to come in here, so I got to go somewhere else. And whether or not they stay in Manhattan, because, there's a lot of empty space, but waiting for the next building collapse, waiting for the next crime wave, waiting for the next power failure, waiting for, and they just go, you know what? No. That's no good for me. My long-term strategic plan was to get out of here, and now you made that decision a little bit more simple for me, and maybe even with the insurance policies that we have for business interruption. All these big companies have business interruption insurance, just for exactly for what's going on, not being a terrorist attack or something. This was a building that failed. So the businesses around them that can't do business anymore, well, you could be paying us our, $80,000 or $100,000 or $1 million per month for lost business and relocation. But maybe it would just be better if he just gave us, that building's not going to get better anytime soon. Maybe just give us $10 million and we move and we don't even have to hit this anymore and we just take our people with us or leave our people and find new people. How about that? And you're gonna have people who are going to look and go, yeah, I don't want to be near any building that's being revitalized. Because, yeah, once bitten, twice shy. And again, that's not Mondani's fault or Mondani's fault at all. That's just crap that happens. So the progressives are in big trouble. Their idea, of course, being social democratic communists, is we'll use your money to throw at it, with no idea of how we're going to get more of that money other than we'll just tax people. We'll tax the rich. Well, the rich are all moving out. We'll tax the businesses. Well, the businesses are moving out. We'll tax the real estate people. I mean, in Seattle, the great mayor turned around and said, well, you know what, we're going to charge you extra taxes on your empty buildings because they're empty. Well, Mayor, it's empty because you're charging businesses an employee tax where 6 miles down the road, that city is not doing it. And it's not that hard for us to move those people over to there as an employer. And, who's gonna come here and pay extra? Well, if you love this city, we love this city, but, we have stockholders and we have owners and we have businesses that we have to account for and justify our expenses. The brainless progressives. Well, we can do this if we weren't spending all this money over that. Well, why didn't you do that when you were in power? Democrats. Why didn't you do that when you had everything? Liars. Liars. Democrats are liars. All their hopes and dreams on Maine, gone. You're going to see upsets in Georgia. It's going to be a ripple effect. The Republicans are reaping in money like crazy. The RNC, more money than they could dream of, and they're not spending it because they don't have to. The Democrats are the best advertising on why you should vote for a Republican. And you have people out there saying, hey, I know what you're telling us with the numbers, but our numbers aren't swaying up to your numbers. And they don't line up. And you did the same thing in 2024 with the election. Threw out numbers that were absolutely ridiculous. Harris is going to take Texas, Florida, Iowa. 396 electoral college votes. This is going to be huge. They're going to ride, Trump into the sunset and then put him in jail. And what happened? What happened? 2026 will be an historic date in November where the Democrats really have to understand that they're defeated, that the people will have voted, the people will have said enough, and that will be the end of it. That will be the end of the show for them. They'll have to reinvent themselves. And really, the only thing that they really have to reinvent is what has always worked for the Democrats. Family values. Jobs. National security. And they threw that away. They abandoned that. And the downfall really started, and I understand the right to have an abortion is now controlled by the state, which it should have always been. No problem with that. But when abortion started to become legal and you demeaned life and you demeaned it. And I remember my mom said that the minute they allow abortions, the flip side is they're going to say old people, euthanize them. And, make that legal too, right? And the minute that starts, and I remember my mom saying that the minute you devalue life, you devalue all your moral issues. Everything can be justifiable now. Again, a woman's body, you could make that decision if your state allows you to make that decision. It's a very, very slippery slope. And there are absolutely instances where, for medical reasons, for criminal reasons, I can get there. I can get there. But when you start doing that, other questions and other, what I would call taboos don't seem as taboo. But the Democrats know where they went wrong. But it's too late. Those Democrats that held those values are gone. Gone. And you're going to need a new party. And it's going to sound like the Republicans. But there are ways to differentiate yourself from that. And I know I speak about labor, and I was and am a labor guy. Your right to have a union is protected. But you can't hold a company hostage. You can't have a union unless you have an employer. The states should never have allowed state employees to be union members. Should never have allowed that. Those jobs were meant to be good paying jobs, but not entrepreneur paid jobs. The government needs good people, and good people should be paid a good salary and benefits, and that I'm all for that. No problem with that. But a person at the DMV, in certain states, making $60,000, $70,000 to take an application. No. Should they be being paid a livable salary and things like, yes. Should they be getting benefits? Absolutely. But that's not the same as some person who starts a business and is making now $300,000 because they're working that business 80 hours a week, or worked it 80 hours per week and now is able to expand and do it and live nicely. And they turn around and they go, well, we're going to punish them. We're going to tax them at a higher rate for being successful. I'm not about billionaire tax thing. Just make them pay like everyone else pays. Corporations that hire more than X amount of people, they shouldn't have to pay any taxes. No federal taxes. State taxes where they are because the state has to provide them with stuff. If they sell to the federal government, maybe, something along those lines. But I think absolutely that there should be, for companies, you don't pay federal taxes. You get people to invest in those companies and you make them stronger. And the people that invest in those companies, their profits get taxed. But the company itself doesn't get taxed because they're providing so many jobs. I think that would grow companies here exponentially. And yeah, you'll have billionaires. Yeah, big deal. You have your Sanders for years. I'm no millionaire. I'm doing fine. Yeah. Now he's a millionaire, and he goes, well, I'm no billionaire. Yeah. No. You do a flat tax for people. The only problem with a flat tax is that it's easy to raise it 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%. Now you're paying 50%. with no deductions, no anything, no nothing. And, you know, the idea was I bought a home, I planted roots. I took a mortgage out. That money, interest, my property taxes were deductible from the federal government because I'm spending money locally building up my communities, which then makes the state less dependent on the federal government. You see how that works? Well, that got disrupted. That got disrupted. And now the idea is, well, we'll punish 1% of those people. Well, isn't that discrimination? Aren't you using money now as a means of discriminating against the person? I'm not drinking my coffee out of my show's cup, which I have plenty of. I'm actually drinking it from my Denny's cup. Not a sponsor, folks. I have no sponsor. Who the hell would sponsor any of these type programs? You know, but my idea with the Democrats is they know how to fix things, and they just refuse because they just won't go backwards. So if you won't go backwards, what do you have to do? If I can't fix a building by making it bigger or making it wider or fixing the foundation, what do I have to do? I have to knock it down. Fix that ground, level it, make sure it's secure, and rebuild. It's what the Democrats need to do. There's plenty of good Democrats out there who have good ideas, sensible ideas, ideas that can actually happen, not hopes and dreams. You want hopes and dreams? Go to Disney. If you want to have a solution to a problem, then you better have a good plan. And the plan has to make sense. And the plan has to have a reasonable goal. We're not seeing that. We are not seeing that today from the Democrats. And so what's the only other plan we got? It's the Republicans. You think about that. Because I have said on this show hundreds of times, a good idea is a good idea no matter where it comes from. And if you want labor in America, you have to have industry in America. And if you want industry in America, then you have to make it economically viable for them. And if that is making some people rich, so you can employ people and give them jobs, then that's what you have to do. But the minute you mandate and take away and control those companies, no. I don't want to do business there with you. I don't want that. So they give it to another country to do, and you worry about the pollution, you worry about the labor, boom, 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 here it is. Build it for me. And we could have safety standards and we could have environmental standards that are reasonable and manageable. The idea now, again, everyone's screaming about these data centers and stuff, and how much water they use to. Well, why don't they use cooling towers? Just recirculate the water like they do at a nuclear power plant, or other plants where they just recycle the water, they run it through a cooling tower and boom, back down. Well, it's the electricity they use. Well, we're getting pretty good at making things that use less power. Right? What my computer right over here does right now, I know for a fact, when I worked at CBS, took 20 racks of equipment and electric that was unbelievable. And now I'm doing this with, 3.5 volts at less than 500 milliamps. Yeah. Yeah. The cries of some of these people, yeah. And you could be conservatives of the land, and I'm all for that. That water, protect water, protect the land, grow good food, process food properly. I'm all for that. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I do demand to know what's in whatever concoction you're going to shoot into me. And when COVID was around, and I said it then, I don't know what you're giving me. There's very little history in what you're trying to do. And the science is good science. I get that. But we still don't know what the shot you gave me 40 years ago really has going to show itself in 4 or 5 generations. So giving me something that now is altering, or how my body's DNA responds to it, yeah, I just want a little bit more information on it. And you had, and I don't blame Joe Biden. I don't blame Donald Trump, because you had advisors. They're not doctors. They don't know. What the hell do they know? They knew how to get elected. That's about all they knew. And they didn't know that. There was the people around them that got them elected. So I don't blame Joe Biden, but I do blame when Joe Biden goes, if you don't get the shot, people that are, you're going to die this winter. You're all dead. Who's telling them that? Fauci? Fauci's telling them that? And how? And so there's a lot of gaps in trusting our government. And when I say our government, I'm saying our government. Democrat or Republican. There are some things where I'll trust the government on, and then there's other things that I absolutely have no faith with them. So, all right, this is 54 minutes. It's about 20 minutes more than I wanted to go on. I haven't even talked about Iran. What's going on in Iran now, I think there was a report from Iran that said the shooting of those ships out there was done by radical elements inside our organization, or, we're dealing with a lot of that. And that might be true. Then my advice to you, Iran, is clean your house and clean your house fast. Or again, you're going to have to accept my cleaning method to clean your house. And that's by killing everyone. If you can't clean it using your method, the de facto method will be done by me. And I said this before at the beginning of the conflict, that when you start killing all your top leaders there, who are you going to deal with? You might not have a relationship with that guy over there. China might not have that type of relationship with the guy. Russia might not have it. They so you're throwing a lot of unknowns, and who are you going to deal with? And if you're dealing with unknowns, then you're going to go, well, I'll just get rid of them all. Then you better get rid of them all. But the only way you're going to get rid of them all is by actually putting boots on the ground there. I think if Iran shoots at any of our neighbors, allied neighbors there, if they shoot at us, if they don't allow passage through there, I'd give them 7 days. I go, for the next 7 days, no shooting, and everyone can come in and out of there. If in that 7 days, everything stays calm and good, we can have another sit down. If one attack happens, Karg Island is gone. And the discussion of your future as an oil-producing nation ends. And the discussion of whether your nation even survives now is the next discussion we have. And do it. And do it. And I know it's a terrible thing, but sometimes when you're dealing with terrible people, you got to be just as terrible. And Iran is a terrible people. The government, not the people, but the Iranian government, terrible people, and have to be dealt with terribly. Because they'll understand that. I'll understand that. All right, I'm going to finish this up. This is going to be 60 minutes. I'm just going to do a quick edit on it and get it out the door. But I would say for the replacement of Senator Lindsey Graham will be Ralph Norman or Russell Fry. Unless there's someone in the background there, I just don't see anyone that has that type of pull. It's too bad because I liked Alan Wilson, but he doesn't have the credentials yet to do it. I don't think Pam Everett, though she's a contender, but I think that it would have to be looked at, and Russell Fry and Ralph Norman would have to say, yeah, Pam Everett, and we'll work with them and we'll do this and stuff, but I don't see that happening. I see Russell Fry as the logical guy, and the next logical person would be Ralph Norman from South Carolina. All right, everyone. Be safe, be well. Please give to a charity if you can give to a charity. Just make sure it's a legit charity. Don't become a victim trying to help victims. If that is not in the cards for you, please think about giving to a food bank. There's a lot of organizations that help the needy in your community that are legit places. They need food, they need clothing, they need money. Think about it. You know, one of the best ones around for me is I like Samaritan. But I don't, you know, do what you go to where you want to go to. A church, a synagogue, a mosque. And you can help people. Say a prayer. Prayer does work. And you have to keep an open mind to look for that answer. Because the answer to your prayers, you might not recognize it because you're asked a question in a funny way. And the answers might be a little different from what you think. But the answer is going to be there for you. And there are miracles that happen every day in front of you, and we just walk over them. Very important. Very important. All right, everyone. Be safe, be well, and I will catch you definitely tomorrow, too. I'm feeling a little bit better this week. And also last week we had thunderstorms. We were without power. There was big disruptions here. And I just didn't feel like trying to get it out the door on battery backup and everything else. I just said, you can wait. Sorry, you can wait. All right, everyone. Be safe, be well, and I'll catch you later. Please like, comment, subscribe. As I fade to black.